Welcome back to Trauma Dump. I'm comedian and funny man Lou Wilson, but not that Lou Wilson, a slightly different, more humane Lou Wilson. Um, I am joined today with the cast and director of of Trauma Dump with Lou Wilson. I'm here with our director Bree.
Hey.
I'm here with our PA playing the role of Kale the PA, Kale Hills.
Hi.
And then our therapist, Paul, whose true name is Harry.
Hi.
There it is.
Hi.
Guys, welcome. Thanks everyone for agreeing to do this. I think I was talking to Harry at some point when the series was coming out, and I think we just had the realization that this wasn't abundantly strange and kind of there are a lot of layers to what we were trying to do, and what we were and in my opinion, what we succeeded at doing. But it felt like it might be fun and helpful to chat a little bit about why we did this, how we did this, and what it was like doing it. So that is what the parties gathered here today are about to set out to do. Um, so I don't know. I guess let's start with Paul. Paul slash Harry. Uh, why did you? Can you speak a little bit about? Because you came to me when I first had this idea. I reached out to Bree and I reached out to Harry, and I was kind of convinced you were going to do it as Harry, because we have been friends for how many years? I've known Harry since
W-
2010,
Something like that.
2011,
Yeah.
2011, and we moved out to LA around the same time, and we've been in each other's lives for a very long time. Uh, However, for this project, I think we decided. I think when I first reached out to you, we had decided that we would obfuscate that we knew each other. We would like kind of hide that reality a little bit. But then I remember you did ask to go by a different name, which I found interesting. I don't think I ever really asked why. Uh, so why?
So I was in school to be a therapist at the time, and I was very doubtful that any of this was legal. Uh,
Got it.
That's a good
there's
reason.
Yeah.
there's a there's a there's a big debate right now about the state of people doing therapy online. Um, and when it gets taken to the ethics board, it kind of goes both ways sometimes.
Mhm.
When you like for those HBO shows and for like Esther Perel's show where people do it, the strict thing that they do is they don't actually call clients clients. They call them participants, and they sort of reaffirm that the show is more art than broadcasted therapy. Um, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, so I was just like, maybe the best thing to do is to lean into this really being like art before I am even a licensed person and get myself into hot water. Um, and also I just I don't know. I guess I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want
Makes sense.
to. I kind
Great.
of want. I just thought it was so fun with people being like, "Who is Paul? I can't find him. I can't even find him." But then once it felt like people actually quite liked Paul, I was like, I wish they knew who I was.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so just to be clear, you have completed your program and you now are a certified therapist. You're the
Yeah, so
real deal.
there's a couple degrees. When you finish school, you then spend 3,000 hours trying to get your license. And on the way there, you're called an associate. So I'm an associate marriage and family therapist. So I do have real training. I'm not an actor playing a therapist. I'm a therapist playing a therapist. Um, and that's that. And then the story from my end, at least, was that I got a call from Lou who said, I want to do this thing that's going to satirize people going and live streaming their own therapy. I want a therapist to do it. I'm going to pretend like we don't know each other. And also, there's a rule. The rules are like, also, let's not talk about the past
Hmm.
or other people.
Yes.
And because of the confusion that we could be getting people like names in there. So and also I won't tell you anything about about who I'm going to be and what I'm going to do. So in a sense, I really did go in blind because was meeting this character for the first time, and there were some strict, limitations on what we could do therapeutically. And so it was just a really, really exciting challenge, and also that I had to try to just do a good job. It sounded like I just needed to go do a good job under comedic circumstances, and you just made me laugh so many times.
Well, you thrived. I mean, you took. I mean, it's funny. It's like I think that I definitely had those restraints on where I was like, I think the way I thought about it is like Lou's problems in the show are some of my problems in the show are imagined. Some of them are just based on my life experience, just in a different font. That's my kind of. It's like it's the same words but just written, and it just looks a little differently, kind of on when presented in this format. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I really just because I was using my own name, I I wanted it to feel like we were trying to do something actually therapeutic. But yeah, I was very specific that I was not going to be talking about work. I was not going to be talking about my coworkers. I wasn't going to be talking about any of those sorts of things while we were in this space.
We
Um,
weren't going to get into all the Jimmy Kimmel
Yes, we
stuff.
were not going to
Yeah.
talk about my boss.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think it's amazing because you really did handle it with aplomb, and I never felt like that was a hindrance to you in the space. Like, I actually never felt like you were taken aback by not being able to talk about those things. Like, I feel like you just bobbed and weaved with, you know, the amount of lime juggling and Lou Juice ad reads that I was doing in a way that I find genuinely impressive.
Just many times you survived. I couldn't. There were times. I think the one time I was stunned and I did not know what to do was after we did the thing about the supernormal stimulus and the eggs, getting on the eggs, and your response was, "Did the goose ever get on the egg?" And then you just maintained like this insistence that it was important to get on the eggs, and I had no clue how to respond. And so there were a couple of times like that. But yeah, it's totally possible to do therapy in essentially an ahistorical way, where the past doesn't matter because you can work with what they call the here and now, where you're just working with what exactly is someone showing you in the room at the moment, and the problems that are happening in their life will probably occur as a problem in the relationship between the two of you. And so if you just analyze that, you can help them with everything else without even having to ask. And so that was sort of the approach I took.
Taking a step back from the approach you
Yeah.
took in the room, the origins of this project involved my good friend Bree, who I've known also since 2010 when I got to college. Um, and Bree is an incredibly talented director who I feel like you and I had been having conversations about the Showtime show Couples Therapy
Yep.
and like other like mental health stuff that had been like coming up and we had been watching. And I remember when I had this idea, I think you were my first call and Harry was my second call. Like those were the first two kind of like, can we do this? Does this sound like something we could do? And would you be excited to do it? I guess, what do you remember from that phone call, how I presented the idea and what you thought of it?
Yeah, I remember we talked a lot about couples therapy and we talked a lot about the Gerard Carmichael reality
Yes.
show, and we talked a lot about Real Housewives, which
Yes.
I watch way too much of. And we were talking about like mental health as a content area feeling very weird. And I had just come off of working for several years for Headspace, making content, making mental health content online. And sometimes that felt really good, and sometimes it felt so strange. Um, and like everything, it's a mixed bag, and I think it depends on like people's intentions and how commercialized something is. But I remember we mainly, because you and I have both done a lot of therapy in our own
Hmm.
lives. Therapy saved my life. I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I don't think I would have a healthy, happy, stable life currently if I hadn't done years of therapy. So at no point were we like trying to make fun of therapy. We just were really interested in the idea of like people broadcasting their mental health and then what type of feedback loop that creates. Because when you know somebody's watching you, you act differently than you do when you're sitting one-on-one across from a person in a private room that you see every single week that you can be really raw and vulnerable with versus knowing that strangers who have no other context for you are going to be having a lot of fun forming opinions on why you are the way you are. That's why I watch reality TV. I love psychoanalyzing strangers. So yeah, we just were talking about that a lot, and it seemed, uh, um, sometimes ideas just feel easier to make reality than others, and that I feel like is always a creative green flag when all of the pieces that you need to do something are already there, and you just sort of have to put them together and let it go. And yep, that's what this felt like.
Yeah, I was doing the artist's way at the time, and um had yeah, was like writing a lot about you're journaling every day. And I think like you're saying is like there was just I was listening. The origin of this in my brain was an episode of Podcast P, which is Paul George, the basketball player's podcast, where he talks about the NBA. And he did an ad read for Better Health, and in the ad read he's just like, what's up? You got like this mental health stuff is awesome. These services are available to you. I don't use them. I talk to my wife. I'm good. Like, but if you want this, like talking to people is great and you should use it. And I was just like, that I think was I just thought that was so funny as like an ethos to play out of like, this mental health stuff is awesome and great. I don't want to be vulnerable or acknowledge that I'm not
Yeah.
excited or interested in that space, but I hear that you guys think that's cool and that's awesome. And it was
Yeah.
just like, um, and I think then like kind of taking some of the Gerard Carmichael show, where like I think that show is very interesting and there's a lot going on there. But the thing that I found really interesting is that the snippets that the show chose to show of Gerard and his boyfriend together in therapy were often like made Gerard look really cool and like someone who has a lot of sex in a cool, fun way. And I was just like, well, what would it mean for a character who has kind of like Paul George's kind of understanding of like mental health as being like it's awesome and it's cool, but I don't know if it's for me, mixed with a desire to actually step into the space, hoping that you come off as a cool, awesome,
Yeah.
super cool guy who loves. And and then I think we just took it out of like making it about like, it felt like maybe too combative to be like, well, no, I just want to talk about the pain that makes me look cool. And it was just like, well, I just want to look cool. I don't want to do
Yeah.
pain. I don't want to talk about who's hurt me or how my mother shows me love and how it's different from how chat shows me love. I just want people to see me in this space wearing sunglasses looking awesome. Um, and yeah, we just kind of, I think me and once the three of us had connected and Harry was on board, I think Bree and I set ourselves to, I guess, scripting a light outline. I mean, the show has a light outline. We knew, I wish we had looked at it before the chat, but I think it was like we would have like the goal for each
Yeah.
episode. Um, and then
We
some,
had the overall narrative arc
yes.
episode, and we had also created like what you were saying about, and I think one of the main things we wanted to communicate our brilliant ideas about mental health. This is two comedy people.
Yes.
Was like, it's really hard to do therapy and have it work, actually. Like, that's hard work. You have to be very present in it for it to be what it's meant to be. Like, you can't really half-ass it. It you can, but why? So we wanted to show that it was hard, and the way we did that was anytime something felt hard for the character of Lou, anytime something felt vulnerable, too close to the bone, we scripted a bunch of distractions, and we
Yes.
were referring to it as the distraction toolbox. So we had come up with all of these things, and Harry, I think we loosely told you like Lou's going to keep trying to pivot in different ways that we're not going to tell you what they are, but we know what they are. Um, and then episode to episode, we had like a larger narrative goal for the character to go through too.
Yeah.
I want to go what you guys were saying about the commercialization of it. I think it's interesting because you know about this phenomenon about Zyn where there are
The
so many
nicotine pouch.
influencers. Yeah, the trend on an influencer world with Zyn is that Zyn itself is so popular that if you're an upcoming influencer, to make something about Zyn or that includes Zyn draws on the popularity of Zyn so that you can gain Zyn's audience. So it's sort
I
of the
don't even know what
inverse.
Zin is. I feel like an
Zyn is
alien.
like
Oh,
it's
What's
these like
happening?
it's like
nicotine
a
pouches that, but it's like
Oh,
yeah,
synthetic. It's like so
yeah,
it's I don't
oh,
truly
okay.
understand the science of it, but in some way I do think it's meant to be like, like a vaping, like it's a
yeah.
healthier
Oh,
option
okay, okay.
for dipping or
And this is
snus.
also happening with vapes. So like with like people blowing trick smoke and stuff like that. So if you make something for that audience, you are tapping into that audience. And it's the inverse of what advertising typically is, where like an advertiser or a product will pay you to tap into your audience for their product. You're now
Oh,
tapping into the product's audience so that to gain fame for yourself. And it's the product's just total dream because they're getting all this free advertising from people who want to pull on their audience. And something like that is happening with mental health, where the hashtag of mental health is more popular than the influencer. So they know they can make a mental health content and get into a mental health world. And it's not necessarily bad for therapy to be getting all this free advertising, but as it spreads with this much like ubiquity, now they're like kind of the wrong things are seeping into our everyday life where like our exes are not just assholes now. They are meeting the DSM criteria for narcissism, and like we're using those constructs just in our everyday life in a way that is unprofessional. And that it has its ramifications, and yet it's also really great that more and more people are thinking about mental health. The gripe that I have with it is that then people think that going to therapy is an obligation, even though they may not necessarily be doing like all that badly. And then the worst thing is they go and get a bad therapist, and then they stick with it for a very long time, thinking that they have to be in therapy or else no one will like them on Tinder.
That's real. That's really real. I got distracted during while you were talking because I just kept thinking, am I doing the same thing to Kale that I did during the episode where where, where I've hosted and started this whole conversation
Not at
and Kale is
all.
just sitting waiting to be introduced. No, but also just in case anyone was unsure whether or not Harry is the real deal, he's out here dropping things like DSM something. What is the DS? Is it the I was gonna guess, but now I'll give up. What is the DSM?
The Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which just tells therapists to decide what mental illness someone has.
Damn. See, he's the real
Yeah.
deal, guys. He's the real fucking deal. Um, Kale, you got brought onto the project. I'm going to say like 2 weeks
Mm.
before our original shoot date. We were originally going to do this in October of 2024. Um, but in a truly crazy time. I was gonna shoot this uh in between. I was doing like a shoot day for Dimension 20. Then I was going to shoot this over 2 days. Then I was going to go do 2 episodes of Game Changer and then another 2 episodes of Dimension 20. It was all going to be done in about like 7 days. And my
Holy.
body said, "You're not allowed to do that. We're getting COVID." And so I got COVID, and we ended up having to reshoot in December, which is why in the very first episode, I pull out my Spotify Wrapped, which you just it's just a perfect uh mid-December pull that's just like me and Brie had a long discussion of being like, I do just think it's funny and it works, even though it I watch it every time and go, that's right, it was December 18th or whatever. Um but I just pulled up the text I sent Kale on October 15th, 2024. Hey, hey, gauging interest and availability for a project I'm working on, playing a version of myself live streaming my therapy sessions. There's an episode where I kick my therapist out and just do therapy with a friend, all improvised. Any world where you might want to come play. And you said, yeah, that sounds fun. Just depends on time. Um, and then we talk about COVID and then, but that was your like intro to this world and this show. And yet, I watch episode 3 and I'm absolutely flabbergasted as to how much you kind of nail it and like walk this line that actually allows me to like deepen the character's understanding and like end on a really sour note outside of the space of just like the show's not working. But I think you have that like amazing line of questioning where you're like, how do you hope people will see you when you do this? And I'm like sick, cool, chill. And you're like, that's all about how other like there were these just moments and things, Kale, that like, and you weren't there on the first day. You didn't watch the first 2 episodes. What was it like being thrown into this, and how did you do the magic of just understanding what I was trying to get at and meeting the moment so impressively?
Oh my God. Well, it was so fun to try to strike that balance because partially I didn't know exactly what the aim was, but I do know that we have similar taste, and obviously I would follow you off of a cliff. So I knew that at the heart there was this tension between trying to make an entertaining product, which I think is why a few times you see me like lean into the shiny objects and like the funny specifics because I can't help but do that. But know that at the end of the day, it was about circling back to something that was true. And I am, as a person, I've been in a lot of therapy as well. I've mostly done like sliding scale therapy. And so I've worked with a lot of different therapists and different modalities. And so it was fun for me to try and pull from experience in that way and just be like, as not as expert as Harry by any means, but coming at it from that same place of like genuineness and curiosity. And for me, one of the most striking moments that I remember was when you asked the character of Kale, like what's the worst thing that's ever happened to him?
Yeah.
And I had like a little mental shutdown moment where I was like, no, this is about Lou. And I had to decide in that moment something that I hadn't really thought of, which is like how like personal or authentic do I want to be in this project? And I settled on, I think, what you said, which is like the truth in a different font. Like, change the specifics, keep the emotion the same. But it was a really fun um, kind of like balance to try to aim for.
Yeah. I mean, well, you hit it time and time again. The Our episode is the most uh breaking that happened over the entire series, and
Yeah.
there are multiple. Just ham is one of the things. Every time Kale walked, there. You can, of course, if you watch it again, you can feel the edit. But truly, anytime Kale said clarified that I wanted just ham, it was a full kind of 15 minute, like 15 seconds of like get it out of my system because it's just. This I just ham is really good, man. And then it comes back the next episode, which is really amazing. Those are all of the little like glissandos to everything that's just like I can't. It was I don't know. To somebody I believe Bree's earlier point of like what the artist way calls synchronicity or just like everything lining
Yeah.
up. It really did feel in each one of these episodes like I had somehow found the exact right people to do exactly the thing I had conjured up in my mind. And I'm eternally grateful to all of you. And truly, every time somebody was asking about Jersey Mike's, I was like, this is it. I don't know. This is why we did all this. And this is why
Mm.
it could be as improvised as it was. Um, Harry, you didn't watch the third episode until it aired. We
Yeah.
actually did keep you in the dark completely. You weren't on set when we filmed it.
That's why
Um,
when you said your teeth look great, I was just like, oh, I don't know why.
Um, what did you like? How did you in moments like that like approach my performance in terms of like you know like you didn't there like you saw me on episode 2 where I like we broke up. Which if you want to talk about or a little bit, that was like a big discussion that you and I had, or you, myself, and Bree had around tailoring that to feel just right because you were really concerned, or what was your concern kind of with episode 2 that
Yeah.
we wanted to hit.
That was the only other thing that I think we had as a decision, a choice point before going into it was that by the end of the second episode, we would break up.
Yes.
And we didn't know how we would get there. Nothing else was really like was scripted, but we knew that we would get there by the end. And the first decision that you guys brought to the table was that my character would catch on too much to the artifice of it all and have a problem with it and leave. Um, and then my stipulation was that a good therapist wouldn't abandon their client for these reasons. I mean, maybe actually for ethically, the TV show version, like or the version of I hate that this is being live streamed could have worked out. But it sounded to me like facing a client's resistance would just make a therapist throw up their hands and be like, I just can't work with this person. And to me, that just would just be a horrible therapist. And I really didn't want to be that. So it would be better if it went the reverse and I got fired. And so it was just this whole thing was such a strange contrast of trying to satirize mental health but not satirize the therapy industry but make therapy also look good. And there that was the almost the tension between us. And it's striking to see in the audience how like there's so much confusion. There's so much confusion and so much temptation to clarify it for them. And then there are some people who 100% nail that weird nuance that we were striking, and that makes me really happy.
Well, I think to your point, and something like Bree and I talked about a lot was the idea that like therapy is effective. It's been deeply effective in our lives, and I think when I look at the series and take a step back, I mean, I think the series is 1 through 4. I think like that's the narrative of Lou is
Yeah.
like I hate this, but we gotta try. I hate this. This actually doesn't work. Can I do it on my own or with the help of an underling? No. And then, all right, well, let's try that again. But I guess maybe I could change a little bit. And then that change feels good. And that's the like the narrative of Lou. Episode 5, I think, is something that Bree and I wanted to include because therapy works. And I think we wanted one of the episodes to be just it working. It's just working for 40 minutes. It's just effective. Lou is Lou is trying, Lou is leaning in, and it works. And we don't have the same kind of dramatic tension as the first four episodes, but I think that for me, five is the epilogue that just go like leaves us with the taste in our mouth that this thing works and is effective and is worth trying and is worth leaning in for. Um, and I think that that was just something yeah, we're walking a really delicate line in this show, but I think overall, therapy works, and we wanted to make sure that that was the note we ended on, with no confusion and no muddle.
I just wanted to mention one thing, which is that because I hadn't seen episode three, I walk on the second day for episode four, and y'all tell me that there was this other guy that had come in and that I wasn't allowed to see what he did. And it was Kale, and he was still around. I got to see him, but I just didn't get to see what he had done. And I hated him, obviously, because he was my replacement. And I was worried that he had done a really amazing job and that it was going to completely upstage me. And so I
Little
tried to
did you
pull,
know.
but no, so I tried to bully him a bit on the day, but and then I saw the episode and I thought you really did do a great job, Kale. Not only are you funny, but you had like a couple of your questions were really like when you when Lou said that people had called him obnoxious and you were like, is there a part of you that you think maybe took that on as true? Or like,
Hmm.
did you do it? Or maybe did a part of you do that? And I was like, oh, fuck this guy.
Well,
Oh,
I think
God.
that's the joy of making stuff with your friends who have known you for a long time. Because Lou and Kale have been improvising together for what, 8, 10 years
All
now,
I mean,
also.
I got out here in 2014. I watched Kale perform in 2015. I was like, "You're going to be my friend." And by 2017, he was at my house for Thanksgiving. So we've been we've been running in each other's circles. We were on an improv team for a long time together called Zombie. That did one incredibly famous college show at was it Mizzou, Missouri State?
Yes, yeah. I
Yeah.
dragged Lou and a couple other people to I'm from Missouri, dragged them back for like a truly heinous middle of the winter, like, basement style improv experience. But yeah, like you said, I think there's that trust there. And I would say that's something that I think is like an underrated part of getting into therapy is like you said, that you don't see it till episode five because, in my experience at least, a lot of therapy doesn't. It's not gonna work. It's in the room for a while. You have to like collect these tools and take them out into the world, and then only once you like do that can you get to that place. So, to your point, Bree and Harry, like I think those questions, my capacity to do that in any way as the PA was just having an existing like trust dynamic
All
with.
right. Well, enough, Kale, enough. Because I cut off Bree earlier, and I want to bring it back to her, and I feel like you're making this all about you again and your skills. So let's just
So
let's
true.
cut that out.
No, I was only going to say something that I feel like we talked about, which is like the episodes are sort of a compressed version of how therapy has felt for us. Different for everybody. I don't know if other people go through that, but I'm Midwestern also, and we were not a therapy family. We were not a talk about your feelings family. If you had to go to therapy, it meant something was really wrong with you. I didn't want anything to be wrong with me. I was very resistant to going, but I needed to go badly. And I found the first therapist I ever went to fell asleep in my session. She was a very nice older lady, and her office was very warm and comfortable, and she did nod off in my session. So that was tough, but funny. So then once I found the therapist I worked with, it was a lot of resistance. Like obviously I wasn't doing ad breaks, but I was doing other slippery things to get away from showing another human being my feelings. And eventually, once you get to the like episode 5 release of it all, it looks easy, but you've seen his path to get to being able to do that, and that's what being in therapy felt like for me, for you, Lou, I think, from what we talked about. And yeah,
100%.
it's kind of fun to compress that into 5 sessions and like warp it through the brains of very fun comedians, um, and come
Definitely.
out with something so weird.
No, 100%. I think I like that was, I mean, that was again like to the joy of working with your friends who you trust. I mean, when Bree and I were like conceptualizing what this would look like. I mean, a lot of it is pulled from our early therapy experiences. My first therapist was so attractive. And I to the point where I had a dream that I was going to go back to Boston and go to see her in therapy again. Like, but just from like kind of like a date. Like that was my I was like, I'll just drop in for a session. We'll hang out for 50 minutes. But it was like it was all about it was all about making her laugh.
Yeah.
It was all about like vulnerability as through her eyes being impressed by me. Like I very much took myself out of it. Like I was like, "Oh, I'm here hoping to get something out of you. That's what will make me feel good about this experience." I think I liked being like I liked talking to somebody, but I think that there was just a lot going on in my life at the time, and I was like, I'm happy to talk about that, but I don't want to talk about me. And I think that it wasn't until I got out to LA and made my way through about 3 therapists that I was actually able to start talking about myself and like who I am and what I needed and what and build a level of self-awareness that allows you to make a show like this. Um, but yeah, it takes time and it takes work.
I'm curious. I think, as a performer, it's like easy to see the way that therapy has impacted my capacity as like a person and as a performer. Bree, do you feel like therapy has in any way shaped your directorial process or how you approach projects? Because I feel like you have the similar kind of like light touch that a
Mm.
therapist might have as a director.
Wow, I love that. Harry, why didn't you ask that question? Not to sort of fan the
Sorry,
flames, but
I tuned out for Kale's question. Could you repeat it for me?
he's just asking if I'm so good at directing because I did therapy.
Oh, I see.
No, but yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think being in therapy, I did it pretty intensively for about 6 or 7 years, and it made me less scared to relate to human people. Um, which is, looking back, you're like, oh, you were scared of that, but I was. I
Mm,
didn't, it felt uncomfortable. I didn't know how to do it. So just on a very basic level of like being able to meet people where they're at and being authentic about where you're at and being able to share space together, I think is like a skill that comes up, especially in directing like this, where it's fun to just see where it goes and to have less of a need to have everything be tightly controlled. And part of the fun is just showing up and being together and making something together versus some sort of weird top-down approach that I don't relate to at all.
mm.
Yeah, I'm sure that's because I feel more comfortable around other human beings than I did before therapy.
I think one thing we haven't talked about is the kind of chat aspect of it all. Like I think there was I I conceptualized this as being live streamed. I think one because there do exist like formats out there that people are doing right now that already exist of people doing therapy on Twitch. Um, but also because I just felt like that rhythm was really interesting in terms of like I felt that the live stream rhythm would kind of lend itself to um to the kind of the wandering and sometimes the natural pauses, the silences that I feel like come with with therapeutic spaces and therapeutic conversation. Um but also because I was genuinely really interested in chat functionality. I thought it would be interesting to have a bunch of people, as you were talking about Bree earlier, of like a bunch of people are watching you and also actively talking about you, attempting to bare your soul on camera. And I think that was I do think it worked. It seemed like we had, my character dreamed it would be thousands, but I think we had just about 700-ish average people in chat for every episode discussing and talking about the experience of doing so. I strategically placed it in the middle of my workday so that I wouldn't be able to watch or read chat as it was going on. But did anyone else ever drop by to have a look-see at what chat was thinking and feeling during the show?
Every time.
Yes. Yeah, my girlfriend is a therapist and she's not like a big pop culture person. So when I have a project, it's kind of hard to get her to watch it with me. But she was like locked in on this one. So we watched every single one together live and I loved watching the chat. Usually I have to wait months or years to see people sort of cyberbully my work. So this is really fun to have it
Tough, dude.
as an immediate response.
Live and in person,
Yeah.
or not in person, kind of the opposite, but very much live. Harry, you were there for every app?
Yeah, of course. And episode 3, I was there was a moment in chat. I think so. You're referring to the Red Bull guy when you
Yes,
ask Bree, like, is he
yes.
here? Is he in chat? And then people who they're so used to analyzing like every subtlety of your work. And so there's
Yeah.
almost this conspiracy process happening that is like really beautiful to see because they've been trained by the Easter eggs that are in your work, so that they're looking for them more. So they hear, "Is he here?" And they're like, "Is it Paul? Is Paul here?" And then people writing in caps like, "Paul, reveal yourself." You are here. And I was sat there with my fingers at the keyboard, being so tempted to unmask. I just wanted to say, to chat, we love you. It is so sweet to watch all of your engagement, even the few of you who are very critical of me. I was, I really, I loved it, especially when it got to, like, as you can tell, I'm obsessed with just talking about therapy from like a theoretical and a practical standpoint. So people, and some people really brought that in. Like there, I remember on the comments for episode 3, someone wrote a huge long post like, and today we learn about therapeutic transference of like Lou bringing in his feelings about Paul and hitting Kale with it. And it's just so like, I was like, this is a fantastic conversation.
Fantastic conversations inspire fantastic conversations. Um, I think we are coming to the end of our little chat, uh, which, will hopefully come up around, well, hopefully this is dropping in place of what would be episode 6, but clearly Lou has agreed with Paul and they've said fuck chat and they're off in a fictional world doing therapy together, without cameras in the room. But I know that we had discussed sharing potential resources with our audience, and people who uh, have maybe been interested in therapy or watched the character of Lou go through this process and thought, hey, maybe I could do that as well. I know Harry and Bree, you guys had said you had some resources you wanted to share.
Yeah, I'll throw it to you, Harry. I'll just go quickly because, as I said, my partner's a therapist and she it was very helpful in having a couple of ideas. The first, anyone who's in crisis, 988 is the hotline if you just need someone to talk to immediately. It's not going away with any cuts. It's there, it's staffed. Call 988. Um, and we have seen people in chat saying that, you're looking into getting a therapist or following up. And that is so cool. That's just really means a lot to all of us. So that's awesome. If anyone is having a hard time finding a therapist, Psychology Today is a great resource. You can filter psychologists in your area by your zip code, your insurance provider, areas of focus. You can look through people's photos, read their profiles, like a little online dating vibe. Because Harry, as we talked about too when we were talking about this conversation, one of the like best predictors of how therapy is going to be for you is the connection that you feel with your therapist. So don't be shy about talking to multiple people and seeing which one feels easier to open up to. Um, and you can also call the number on the back of your insurance card and ask for a list of behavioral health providers. Um, or ask your primary care provider for a referral. And if you don't have insurance, um, most cities will have something called a local access clinic for underinsured or uninsured people, undocumented people, anyone who you feel like the traditional systems are not really available to you. You can Google local access clinic and your city, and there should be some other resources that come up from that. And we'll link a couple of things in the description of this episode also.
That was really helpful, Bree. Um, yeah, and if you guys want to work with Paul, you can. If you
Okay,
already feel
what?
that connection, I don't know if you'd like to. I'll throw that into the description.
Of course.
But I've written a guide for clients on how to start therapy, um, because I think there's just some really key things that have been pretty well researched that clients should know more about in order to maximize their own uh, the benefit that they get from therapy. And the biggest one you already mentioned, which is that the biggest predictor on whether or not therapy will be helpful for you is whether you feel a connection to your therapist, which just means that you respect them, you get the sense that they respect you and care about you, and you're excited to talk to them, and you want to know what they're going to say back to you. Like, you look forward to sharing your life with them, and it's not some obligation. And that obligation is real. A lot of people feel it, especially as mental health as a brand gets stronger, and they think they just have to go experience what therapy is. And then they don't necessarily like the person, but they keep going anyway because they have to check that box in their life. So finding the therapist that you click with is the most helpful thing you can do for yourself. And not enough therapists make space to say to you, hey, if you don't feel it with me, find somebody else. So the key thing to know is that if that connection to your therapist doesn't grow in the first 7 sessions that you see them, statistically it never grows. It looks like it virtually never happens. Sometimes it happens right away. And like in this show, it's an interesting thing where like our connection doesn't really happen until our third session. So that's like a really common thing. But so my strongest piece of advice for people finding a therapist is to be picky, and that first act of looking into a professional and actually feeling entitled to your own preference and saying, like, actually, I didn't like this enough. And I'm even going to have the guts to stand up for my preference and not go back or just tell them this isn't it and look for somebody else. That's like one of the first most therapeutic things you'll do for yourself. And so be picky and go on the journey to get the person that you deserve, and see how they work, and find just somebody who resonates with you. And a list of um, other kind of things about how to get the best out of therapy, like a guide to starting therapy. I'll put that in the doobly doo.
It'll all be in the doobly doo. Well, I'll tell you, I've found a group of people that I deeply resonate with. Uh, did that sound right? That I deeply resonate with?
A cult?
No, it's you. It's
Oh.
like the three of you.
Oh.
Yeah. Come on, bro. I also really liked Harry. It really felt like you locked in there. I feel like you were making direct eye contact with the camera. You were like looking, you were straight
It was
down the barrel in
magical.
that moment. It was magical. I was like, that's right. I am entitled to say I don't like you. But I like all three of you. It meant the world that you came on board this project. And I mean, truly, I cannot lie. What I dreamed in my head, we did exactly that. And I don't, I think that is astounding. And I think it just speaks to each of your
Julia Cameron.
creativities. What's up? Oh, and Julia
And it
Cameron,
speaks to
of
Julia
course.
Cameron, author of The
Gotta give
Artist's
it up
Way,
to
which is a
JC,
great
dude.
sort of intermediary step. If you're not ready to find a therapist, just do The
What's up,
Artist's
man?
Way.
Hit those morning pages. Go on those artist dates.
She changes
And
lives. She really does. That
She
book
does.
has changed
brother,
more lives.
I'm looking at it right now. It's directly
Me
behind
too.
the laptop. I think about starting it every other week. Every other week, I'm like, maybe I should. Maybe it's time.
Wait, you haven't done it yet?
No, I didn't finish.
Ah.
I did like 8 weeks, made this series, and was like, it worked. But one of these days I will finish it. Okay, I'm gonna we're gonna wrap it up. This is it. This is the end. Uh, thank you guys out there. Thank you so much for participating in this strange journey. This has been Trauma Dump with Lou Wilson, Brie LaRose, Cale Hills, and Harry Dreyfus. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks, chat.
Thanks, chat. Bye,
Seven,
chat.
seven, seven, seven.
Seven,
Sevens in the
seven, seven,
chat.
seven, seven.
Sevens in the chat.